should be recording. There we go. I think.
Okay, it
Did
did.
it warn you?
Yeah, normally it would reset, but it didn't. So there we go. Yeah, just as a footnote, along the lines of what I was saying, I think I'll just briefly kind of go over that so everybody knows. Um, the initial reason for this workshop, so-called, which really isn't a workshop, it was a gathering for preparation to rehearse in order to co-create with one another, in order to harness energy collectively on a unified level, so that we can look to help change this reality field. Pretty much it in a nutshell. So this is what I've been saying from the very beginning. There was a period of time when I was kind of caught in despair because of losing my singing voice, and all the things I had been preparing, all the stuff I've been working on just came to a halt. And considering all the things that I had experienced within the last few years, it was a little bit too much for me to handle. You know, it was quite a blow. So I had to take a back seat, and I was kind of like on autopilot there for a while. And I really didn't want to have to keep talking about the same things over and over again because I just didn't have it in me to do it. And so I can understand people's attention to what has been taking place here, why they would, you know, kind of slip away from what was happening. And I'm just saying that I am now resorted, so to speak. It's not easy, but I'm redirected, and I still plan on doing what I had in mind to do. Um, but I just don't have the facility by which to be able to do that at this point yet. Now, if I had other people that could assist me with what I'm doing, and I'll just be very clear about that. If I had people that I was working with, such as other musicians and things like that, and people that could facilitate uh, a place in which this could be worked out within the states here, specifically in California. It doesn't have to be in California, but that would be convenient for me at this stage. Then it could proceed from where I left off at, and it could, some momentum could be created if I had people to work with. And I've been kind of putting out fillers for that for individuals, but I've gotten nothing back from anybody. So I'm kind of like at a standstill still yet, of course. And so I'm just looking to redirect what I'm doing here, and that could be beneficial while I continue to kind of go through the motions in order to keep things moving. And so that's understandable why certain people would perhaps get disheartened about what was going on here. I would say number one, it was misunderstood as being a workshop. Just didn't really know what else to call it. Okay, could have been called anything. Group meeting, that was a little bit too generic, so just kind of went with workshop. And I guess in essence, it really is a workshop because it's about training, working together, training. And so again, to say being disheartened and kind of losing my footing, um, people became disconnected. They didn't see the big picture, and why would they? Even though I was talking about it from the beginning and continued to talk about it, I couldn't be talking about it constantly. And there was things that needed to be done in order to kind of feel what was going on with the group, and looking to do the music and that type of thing, which is way more fitting for everybody being under the same roof. That's where it makes sense. I knew it wouldn't work for this because it's not a platform that allows for that. You get more than one person speaking at a time, it starts to cut out, let alone music and people singing and all this other stuff. That's not going to work. And even then, when I was doing what I was doing, instead of asking everybody to mute their microphone, I left it open. so that everybody can do what they wanted to do, because I didn't really want to tell anybody what to do. I knew what the result would be, but I wanted everybody else to know what that was, so that next thing would come up would be the question, okay, how can we do this without this happening? And then, okay, everybody shut off their microphone. We can try it that way. See, that's part of co-creating what I was doing. It's not that I didn't know the conclusion of things before they ever happened, but it was important for everybody to be on the same page. And so perhaps maybe I was giving a lot more allowance than I probably should. And then people challenging me according to my leadership and all this other stuff. And it just wasn't working at all, you know? And the truth of the matter is, when I go silent, so do everybody else, or they start going off in a different direction.
Right.
So now the reason why I have to keep speaking, there's many reasons, and that's one of them. But again, I probably gave too much allowance for people to interpret what's going on, so that, but I didn't want to feel like, I didn't want to push it. I didn't want to feel like I was telling people what to do or anything. I didn't want to put them on a uneasy, I understand what it is to speak before public audiences, and I know how people stop listening and start reinterpreting what you're saying. And so I wouldn't probably do it any different than the way I did it for the most part, okay? Because it had to work out that way. So everything is a process. And so this is definitely a process that has gone on. But from this point on, if there's anything, I am going to be very clear about what I'm doing. And people, if they're on board with it, fine. If they're not, then, quickly excuse oneself and be done with it, because there's no time to waste with any of this. And I can't walk within false sense of humility. When I know to do something, I know to do it, and I don't need to get any permission for it. There's people just trust with what I'm doing or not. Either way, I will continue to do what I'm doing, even if it's by myself.
Or
Now,
with Daphne.
now, yeah, Daphne, absolutely. Thank you, Daphne, for being here. So, anyhow, let us shift over to, I think, which
Can
is a
I
pretty
just
good.
say one thing about
Sure.
that?
Yeah.
Or in that realm of discussion. So yeah, I think it was really a lot of like, and I think in a group, this is important that you're guiding, you're leading, and never felt like you weren't doing that. But at the same time, I think it was a meshing of a lot of people coming from different places. And then what you were going through on your end at the same time, that it just felt like a lot of getting to know each other and in learning what you wanted to give to us so that we could come together as a group. So I think and maybe this is just my train of thought, but it feels like it happened the way it was meant to. And I think you actually said that in this discussion right now that you were talking about. But I, as being here for all of them, I mean, I understand the progression, and I think the way you just explained it was helpful to know where we go, like how we got to the place we're at right now, I guess, so to speak. But I think, I mean, I'm excited to see what happens when we move forward, because whenever I'm in a group where you can highly resonate with people, like I do with you, and when the more people that would come in, we sort of formed a group that was co-creating together. Um, it is a little bit of a dynamic thing that you have to go through, and personalities and sort of coming together and forming a cohesive group. So it it felt like it needed to happen that way.
Yeah.
And you needed to go through what you needed to go through, as did each of us that were in here. And I think the fact that not everybody's here today, or no more people are here, it may just be they're busy. They might be back next week. So we'll just, but we know some people moved on, and that's fine. You know, if you don't resonate with it, no worries. It's,
Yeah.
we're
Well,
accepting,
yeah,
but so if
the
you're not into it, then keep going. You know, you have your own direction.
yeah, the contention that took place last time really put a spoke in the works. It was like the last thing you know, I didn't even give Axel 2 cents of time because I just like, here's the thing, here's the reason why. I feel the energy from the very beginning. I'm holding this space and I can feel everybody. I know exactly, dare I say it? I know their intention. I know it. Because I learned this on my sick bed when I was 33 years old. It turned on.
You can
Okay.
feel
I've been
people.
learning to read that for a long time in my own language within me. But I give space for people to be themselves to come forward. I wouldn't want it any other way. I can't have it any other way because I know their authenticity, their true authenticity is so vital for truly co-creating with one another. And so I was just biding my time. I knew who was going to leave from the beginning. I knew who would be here and who wouldn't. Okay. Should I confess that openly? I might as well. You know, I'm not going to, again, I'm not going to be in that state of false humility anymore just so that I don't offend people. You know, there's a balance to it all, but the truth is that I've been doing the best that I'm able to do. And it may not have been the best for people's perception because of what they prefer. But here's the thing in regard to that. Age does matter. Age allows for the ability to process information and experiences that you don't have when you're younger. And if you don't respect your elders, then you're disrespecting yourself. The reason why, as the example, I was answering Olia the way that I was answering her was because I felt it as being the most beneficial for her. Because if she wants to pursue that line of questioning, she can go on the internet and pursue it to her heart's desire. But what I had to offer to her was what I had to offer, which was based on experience and my discerning ability over the years. When I feel energy going in a certain direction, before people even say what they're going to say, I already know where it's going because I read that. I don't read the words. And so this is how I respond usually. And I got upset with the young man, questioned my leadership and the way that I was responding or answering, because the last thing I needed at right then and there, because I was just doing good to hold myself together because of what I've been going through. Last thing I needed was that. And the reason why I became so adamant and cut him off is because I didn't want to hear it, because I knew where it was going. And I knew it from the very beginning, early on, when that individual arrived. Like I said, I know who's going to stay and who's going to go. I can feel the intention. I can feel the energy around him. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It just is what it is. And I'm not going to nudge them either way. That's a choice that they have to make. But the choice that they have to make sometimes interferes with other people's um, direction. It puts a stumbling block before them. You got to watch what you say. You know, I try to do that, but when you're younger, you think you got things figured out, and you're just starting to kind of figure things out. But your energy's high and your conviction's strong, so there's a tendency to be a little bit overbearing. you know, and I could feel. So that's the thing of it is when, like, if I'm there and I feel energy, I can feel where the contention is. Why, when if I'm talking, I can feel it building up around me and I'm going, so I have to navigate through all that, you know, it's kind of heavy water, if you know what I mean. So if one thinks being in a position of leadership is what you need to be doing, think again. Give yourself some time with that, because what you do, that responsibility falls back on you in regard to other people's decisions. That's the reason why I don't want to tell anybody what to do, because that comes back on me. But I will encourage them in the areas that I know that is expedient, which are truly beneficial, universal law. I will direct them that way, you know. So everything, needed to work out the way it was worked out, mainly because of the choices I had already previously made before doing any of this. Because time is perceived as being linear here, but in truth, in spirit, there's no time. So that's what I'm talking about. I already felt into it. I've already experienced, I've already discerned, I already knew. Now, because of the nervous system and the body and everything and conditions and everything, it turns out distorted sometimes because it's hard to live here. It really is. But my intentions are pure. That I have no qualms about saying. And I think that should be self-evident based on the things that I've done and the things that are out there that I've done. I'm not really interested in being known as a brand or as a name or anything like that. And a lot of that has been fulfilled too, because a lot of people haven't given me any attention, which is fine. But I would say that's partly good, but I wish they would towards the music that I do. That would be, because it'd be nice to make a living at doing this, because I'm really good at it, you know. But that putting aside, not such a great segue into what we're going to be talking about here, which is, well, it's all relative. It's about authenticity, right? The authentic self, the sphere of Amenti. If we look at us here, all those who are inhabitants here on this planet, we share a collective consciousness. And the reason why we do is because of what had transpired on Tara when the cataclysmic event had taken place. The soul essence memories database became fragmented, space dust. Okay, think of it as space dust, and it was pulled into the gravitational pull of the sun, for lack of better words, and downstepped here. So everything that we see here within this solar system is the result of the morphogenic field of Tara. So the sphere of Amenti, in a nutshell, well, I put the transcript for that, which I did a MP3 or did a video that has the WAV file in it, going through that. If one wants to know more about what that is, all I have to do is check that out instead of me repeating myself. So, so that's here within the chat. There's a couple links there and stuff. So people want to access that, they can get to that through that. Anyway, long story short is that there was a timeline jump to facilitate the fall of man, as it's called. It was really known as a war because that's what it was. It was a war because there were certain factions that didn't like the angelic human because of what their position was, and they were protecting of the stargates and so on and so forth because of what had transpired, billions of years before, right? And the destruction of Gate 12 and yada, yada, yada. Okay. So the reason for the angelic human being created was to be guardians, protectors of the gate systems. Okay. Pretty powerful beings, actually. A lot of lot of genetic contribution towards that. So there's some beings out there that really hate us. And that should be evident to some who've been on the battle line. They understand the hatred. It's a twisted hatred. Okay, let's just say that. Can't blame them for being the way it is. For the same reason, we need to personally take responsibility that what's transpired within this universal construct. We're all part of it, so it just makes sense to take personal responsibility, be it that you're part of it. So no blame, because when you throw blame, it starts to it throws you off the rails of unification and harmony with all the creation, all the individuations. So you have, again, what I said from the beginning, we can't pick and choose for the benefit of all life. Okay, so right. It's through love that we're able to do that. We start doing it through our mind and we do it through our conditions here, it doesn't work. It's an endless loophole. It just kind of keeps you from moving forward. Again, the emphasis here is authenticity. So the authentic self is what's being recoded here. So coming back here from lifetime to lifetime allows for that recoding. In other words, the assemblage of those missing pieces of the puzzle of your essence, of your database, who you are truly as an individuation, which we are not here. We're part of a shared collective consciousness, okay, because of that fragmentation. So it's so essential to focus on one's authentic self. So what does that even mean, right? What's an authentic self? Well, it's the true self that is working through freedom. It's a signature. You have a signature that is unique to yourself. And it's about recoding and bringing and assembling that aspect of self. The catalyst to that would be the love that you've always been. I'll throw that in for free, okay? Because that is really the truth of the matter. That'll cause you to reassemble faster than anything. I mean, the sphere of Amenti is there to expedite the condition. And again, what I started with was when the fault had taken place, they time jumped and they immediately integrated the sphere of Amenti. Okay. Again, reading through what that's about in the summary would be helpful. At any rate, so they brought in within the standing waves or within the primal sound fields the raw confederacy. Confederacy is just a big fancy word for saying within the level of that first identity expression within the source field, the tone raw, you'll find, is what was assisting. And these are beings, they're living beings, okay? Everything's alive, everything, all substance is living. So what the sphere of Amenti is that. It's holding the second or should I say with the 11th and 14th dimension consciousness band structure, okay? So moving from 11 to 14. So within that, you have the blueprint. And so that's what the sphere of Amenti is for, is to it allows for the resetting or recoding, okay? And the only way that it's able to do that is being able to find your signature, and your signature is expressed through your authenticity. And that happens over lifetime and lifetime. In the beginning, it becomes very much, what's the word for it? Very lost. And as you go from lifetime to lifetime, you start to reassemble more of yourself, and your authentic self comes forward more and more. And then it starts reading. So at that point, it's able to, once it gets to a certain point, it's able to expedite, and you are able to expedite, the process. Like I can't think of the term that would be used for that, but you understand with what I'm saying. And so,
can I ask you one question?
sure.
So, like everything you've explained through the previous information people can read or listen to, the only thing I didn't know about was the 14th.
Yeah, 11 and 14. for two dimensions.
Could
Yeah,
you
see,
like
because yeah, because
expand on that a little bit, or is
yeah, well, it's again, first of all, it's important to understand what dimensions are, right? I mean,
yep,
there's you can spend a whole day just explaining what a dimension's about, but if you just summarize what it is, or just put it in a word or within a phrase, it's bands of consciousness. It's awareness, and it's
right,
in this case we're talking about the awareness of who you are as an individuation. I mean, a true individuation, meaning within your higher aspect of self. Hey, David, nice to
hello.
Hello.
have you here.
Nice to
How's
see
things
you.
been going?
All right. Interesting. Always interesting. Never boring. How about you guys?
I'm doing okay. How about how you doing, Daphne?
I am doing well. Yeah, things are going well with me. I'm feeling, yes, compared to last week. It seems like there were
Da-
challenges last week, but this
Daphne's
week,
going to be a birthday girl here coming up on this in the month of April, and
April
she's
24th,
gonna do a long
April
awaited
what?
trip that she's been wanting to do for a period of time.
April what?
April 24th.
7th
Oh, okay.
Oh,
this week.
your birthday boy, huh? In the
This week.
okay.
This week.
Well, I was telling Randy I want to go out to California and I'm going to
Wow.
be near him. So I was wanted to mention it to the group in case anybody else wanted to swing out there. We could all
Well,
meet, but no one
Evelyn
needs to
is
feel like they have to.
here in California, isn't she?
Oh,
Yeah,
I
Evelyn.
don't know. I don't know.
I think so.
But
Pretty
remember,
sure. Pretty sure. Yeah.
Just
Anyhow,
just just this week, Daphne, you reported yourself as safe as but
right?
I've no idea how big America is. I live in a little
I'm
island.
an hour south. Well, 45 miles south of, but with traffic, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, that's local.
south
it,
of
it
Baltimore.
Yeah.
the north mid states and west has quite a bit of diversity in topography.
Mm.
Like
Yes.
right here at the transversal mountains,
Mm-hmm.
run east and west, surrounded by them. So I mean, 30 miles away. I used to live up here in Crestline when I was 18 years old. Yeah. So
It's just such a
I
big.
mean, it's when you can get to. It doesn't take if you have transportation. It doesn't take long to leave where you're at to go into a
Right.
completely different environment. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Baltimore. So I live closer. I live right outside of Washington D.C. in
Right.
Northern Virginia. But then there's Washington D.C. Then there's Maryland,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
they're all right there together. Like I mean, they're really close in that
Mhm.
little region.
Mhm.
So the Beltway
Mhm.
goes around Washington D.C., but the top
Yeah.
part of the Beltway hits Baltimore, where
Right.
all that craziness happened with the bridge
Mm-hmm.
um, earlier this week.
Mm.
I don't watch the news. Don't listen to
Yeah,
anything.
don't worry about it. Yeah,
I,
it's.
you know,
I don't know that
I could
any of
wake up and
us should.
the world has ended, and I would
Yeah.
wake up and I'd still be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't have known that was going on because I don't watch the news. But one of my friends from Australia, who their day is our night, had sent me a
Right.
message saying, how are you and your family? Is everybody okay? And I saw the bridge collapse and I was like, what? So I looked at the news. But normally, like, unless somebody mentions it to me verbally, I try not to pay attention to a lot of that stuff because it just takes you down the negative rabbit hole.
Yeah. It's just more
Of,
drama that just conforms you and takes you out of your authentic self.
Yeah.
Truly.
right.
I look at boats all the time. So anything that happens in shipping and boats, I know
Oh,
about.
okay.
And so That's how I know about it. And then
Well, there's a huge effect on how things are going to be able to be shipped or not shipped, because for years they're not going to be able to use the Port of Baltimore, and that was a really big one. I mean, it's right in the middle of the United States on the East Coast. That was a really big one, for all the trucks to pick up stuff and take it to all the interstates. And so, it's probably
disruptive.
happening for a reason. They
Happening
want us to be distracted by.
Interesting.
So anyhow, 11th to 14th dimension. The 12th dimension holds the Maharhata, or the blueprint. Okay, so this is what's held within the, primarily this was what we're looking at when we're talking about the sphere of Amenti. Reset. I mean, but first the pieces of the puzzle have to be reassembled, because it becomes part of the morphogenic field like space dust. Does that make sense? So that's the retrieval process. And so when you become aware more and more of who you are, you reintegrate that. And what the sphere allows for is the assemblage of it. Okay. And the activation through the reprint, through the recoding, which is the 12 strand DNA. Okay. So it takes, for some, like I said, for myself, I've been here for a long time. When people think I'm new, and I'm going, what? I know better than that. I was here during Meldec, you know. I remember being on that when it blew up. So, hello, I've been here for a while. And no, I mean, I have people say that, they accuse me of that. Oh, you're new. It's like, I just don't let on. I can tell you anything I don't need to tell you. I went 15 years without telling anybody about what I did, that I was in ministry and Christianity. What I'm going to do, just tell everybody everything? I don't. I'm just now starting to be more revealing, because it doesn't really matter.
So let me just ask this question about the 11th and the 14th dimension, or what is helping us recode.
Well, again, we're talking about mainly what the focus here really would be, the true aspect of individuation. Here, this is a shared collective consciousness. That's what's going on here. And so the reintegration or recoding and bringing back more of your energy that you had as a soul when you were on Tara, or when you were in that consciousness band state, which is 6-band consciousness state, 6-dimensional, is what is being recoded or reassembled here. It's essential for it to take place here because of how this transpired. When you have the planet that is the soul essence database within the morphogenic field, and the silicate matrix of the planet blow up people and everything that's on it, and then be pulled in and downstepped into this field here. And then what we see here is the assemblage of what was, primarily Tara's morphogenic field. Okay. So all this has been a process. So been about restoration. So as soon as this happened, there was a time jump in order, let's just say time travel. You just use that expression to be able to start setting things right. So there's been a lot of work towards this from the very beginning, as soon as it happened, But when we look at these higher bands of consciousness, we're looking at the idea of our identity within the manifest construct, which again here it's still fragmented, still in the process of assemblage, right? Still putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And it happens um, through the individual. Our actions makes it happen. That's again to emphasize the importance of our authentic self coming forward and walking within it. The more we become aware of that, the more that we need to draw towards it. Remove ourselves further away from the drama and from the phenomenon around us. I mean, through the sphere of Amenti is where, if you're looking at ascension, because that's basically what we're talking about here, because once you reform yourself, you're going to immediately, well, not necessarily immediately, but you have the potential to move to the other
Said.
reality field. And that's through the portals that we find within that has been established through the sphere of Amenti, right? So consciousness band 2 and then consciousness band 5, right? So in order for you to be able to go through a Stargate, you have to hold the codes, your codes, which means your energy, really, to be able to move to that next stage. Makes sense, right? If you're going to go to the 6th grade, you have to have a 5th grade education, if you know what I mean. So that's a,
Graduation.
yeah, well, you have to, well,
Graduate
it's
from
a
fifth
poor
grade.
metaphor, it's a poor analogy, but the point is that in order to be able to be there, you have to meet the grade.
Have to
So
have the
you have to
fifth
meet the
grade
code,
code.
in other words, in this case, right?
Yeah.
So you have to hold the codes within you in order to be able to pass through. And so that's the way it works. And that passage takes place with and through the halls of Amenti. A lot of people think it's a place of records, and I guess it is, but primarily that's not what it's used for, at least from what I can see. And that's pretty much it. See you
So our
folks later. No.
our, our collective consciousness, you're saying us here now are from the consciousness of Tara, sixth dimension.
Yeah, that's soul. That's soul awareness. That's the embodiment of your soul awareness, which means your complete individuated self. Now, it's a subdivision of your complete individuated self, okay? But it's still your individuated self. Source individuated self, as it would be. Here we don't possess that. It's fragmented. Again, we're all sharing a collective consciousness here because of again, to emphasize, keep emphasizing the reasons why is because of what took place with the cataclysm on Tara and the shattering of consciousness.
Okay.
So the reassembling of that is what's taking place here. And from the very beginning, from the
We're
time that it
Humpty
began,
Dumpty
is when it
putting
was,
ourselves back together
yeah,
again.
yeah. I mean, it explains a lot, though, if you start thinking about it, why things are so conflicting here outside of the conditions that are set forth in motion on the behalf of the fallen agendas, but just how it can, relationships in here, it can be very, very strained just by themselves because of that, you know? It's like, we were just kind of all schizophrenic pretty much at this stage.
We're all
Is
these
what it
little
is,
wounded beings, like
I mean, we share
like
schizophrenic
bouncing off of each
consciousness
other
pretty much is
and
what it is.
missing
You know?
each other. I feel like we're
Yeah,
all these.
it's doesn't make sense until once you're reintegrated. Then
Yeah,
it's like, okay. I mean, the best word to use here is fragmented.
yeah.
You can use words like shattered or whatever, but the consciousness has been fragmented, and it's like you going to space dust. Hence the reason why I guess that word, the expression is used. It's you're just floating in the morphogenic field, and so in order for awareness to come forward, it has to be embodied, and then within the embodiment, when the embodiment becomes more aware, so does the consciousness that is you, that is fragmented, that it can come back into you, in other words, reintegrate. I've been talking about this for a very long time, actually. This
It's
is
the
at this
more
point
room
where
in
I
the
probably
wine
know a little bit
sack,
more
right?
about it, but I always felt this. you know?
That's like what you're talking about, more room in the wine sack. Like you have to make more room for yourself to bring in all these other parts that
Yeah,
you're embodying or
yeah,
reintegrating.
yeah, yeah. So, um, the catalyst I find for it, again, it would be the love that we've always been. If we can embody that, which is the greatest task that you can do, the greatest service that you can is to, for the benefit of all life. I mean, is there anything greater? There isn't. That's the greatest. So the love that we've always been really is the catalyst for how we are able to reassemble oneself. Love always draws itself together. So, yeah. Um,
So that 11th
but
and
it's not a
14th.
passive thing. A lot of people think it's like the love that you are, and the experience of love here for the most part, because there's all kinds of love, right? But it can be giddy and goofy, and that's fine. But who you really are, what my experience was with here, because I've experienced the idea of being in and out of the body at the same time, and that conscious awareness that I wouldn't even use the word bliss. That doesn't even make any. It didn't make any sense because I was so coherent, more than I would ever be, ever had, or have been within this field of incarnation. Within this particular incarnation, that is, there is this love, but it's not like this. It's it's just awareness, how I'm connected to everything and how much I care for everything, and it's just huge, but at the same time, it's very stable. So when you act on something, it's according to your will, like a standing wave waiting for action and command to be made. That's what I felt within myself at the same time. There was no thoughts, none, other than what my intention was, and then it went. It was, the thoughts weren't thoughts, they were actions, energy directed, you know? And when you go out of the body, that's really kind of what happens. Not kind of, it's really what happens. Manifests immediately. So, you know, got to
This
prepare
is
yourself before you do any of that.
this is a
Train
little bit
yourself not to be that way, or at least control it. What's
this is
that,
a little
David?
bit strange, a little bit strange because I don't know if you know, but I'm a writer and I write books, and I
No, I have never heard that before.
well, well, I write quite a lot, and I've
David, I was
recently
joking with you.
focused. Yeah, I know. I've recently focused on one book that I've really enjoyed writing. I'm almost at the end of it. Really enjoyed it. Um, and I was sat in a room upstairs. It's a glorious room. I get sun on me. Got the window open, and I'm writing. And I've got the sun beating on me today. And I'm writing about, as it happens, it's on a boat in the Mediterranean, but that's an aside. But I was bilocating. I was there. I was absolutely as much on that boat today in the Mediterranean as I was here. 100%. Absolutely. Now it's fucking scary how real it was. It's not pretending, not imagining it. I'm immersed in my writing, and I'm
Right.
not naturally a writer. It's like you don't have to be a brilliant musician to understand the melody when you hear it. You just know. You just know.
Well,
And
that's
it was
normal. That's
yeah.
the thing. That's the thing, David.
Yeah.
As you know, through
It's
the experience, you're having the experience. It's hard to
yeah.
explain experiences sometimes, especially here. But the thing of, it's normal. It's bilocating and being in a different place when you're there, especially if you're like within a dimensional awareness that's outside of this one. Let's
Oh,
say above, say like 3.5 or whatever. All of a sudden, the color and everything is so. It seems like this is a dream, and that
yes.
is the real
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
100%.
But being in a different place and many different places at the same time is actually a normal thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, like the avatar identity, I mean, that's really what you do. You just, you're everywhere, you know. I remember people saying, talking about Jesus, 'cause there's three of them, but whatever their names are, it doesn't really matter to me. The point is, I know one of them, okay? And I really like that one, okay? Just say, I had a personal relationship with that one, all right? But that being would be in one place at the same time, be in several other places while somebody else is talking to other people outside of the body. It'd be there with this person, very focused, and then also over here, and also over here, and also over there, which means many places outside of what is being observed, obviously. But that's the true nature of what we are within that state. You know?
But it's also very nice to feel it, you know,
Yeah.
empirically, not just talk about it like we understand it and we'd like to think it, but to
Yeah. Well,
actually occupy two spaces at once.
Yeah.
I've done it. I've done it.
That was sort of like this experience I had when I was here and I was in Eartha at the same time. It was that type of thing. It was just, it kind of reflected on this, what I was referring to, and having that awareness. It was the same type of feeling, and still which is interesting because it reminds me of like when I re-experienced 6 months old here within this vessel, and my awareness of who I was as a immortal spiritual being is not any different than it is now. It's always the same. Who I am, in regard to retrieval, in respect to reforming, recoding, and all this, is that based on only our experiences? No, it's who we are and our experiences. You know, that's what's being recoded. So that's evident based on my own personal experiences, and it relates to what you're talking about here, David. You know, different but yet the same thing. Where you feel this connection with certain things, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember this, but it's not like you're thinking, oh, I remember this. You're just immediately there. It's like once we go from this stage to the next stage, it's just immediate. It's not like, oh, no, it's just now you're this. In this, in regard to reforming who are true individuated identities, is you just become, like the emphasis that I've been looking to try to make towards that, holding the love that we've always been, embodying that. You just immediately, once that's there, it's now you're that. And your quickest way to transmute too. I mean, if you reach that state, not necessarily the quickest to achieve, but if you get there, and I think part of it, being able to get there, is letting go of everything here, but at the same time having a love for all of it. It becomes the transcendent aspect of self. It becomes now self. What I realized about transforming a reality field is that your intention has to be 100%. If you reach that click, 100%, that's when it'll change immediately right then.
I think that's the difference between writing. There is no preconceived idea what's going to go on. It's just relax and it doesn't matter. And you write a book, but you can be 100% authentic to it, 100% authentic to it, because it's your story that you make up. That and trying to recall fractals of a past, which come in segments when you're not ready. And this was really consciously, manifest out of what I was creating. I thought I was writing a book. I thought I was sat on a computer. I thought I was looking at a screen, but in my head, I was on a boat, and I was in a very different place. Bloody fabulous, really good, really worthwhile, and without effort, I would just happen to be there. And that's always nice when it happens without effort, without you trying to, like I've been trying to leave my body, and in the trying is the prevention to prevent you. It's like trying to find stillness. You can get close, you can get mighty close. You have to let go of that last bit, don't you?
That's interesting. You say that, because a lot of the experiences that I've had here none of it was premeditated whatsoever. Absolutely not. Most, I wasn't, what's the best way to put this? I wasn't taken by surprise. That's the wrong word, because I was just in it. I found myself in it. And I was doing something the opposite of what you would think that would take you there or something, you know.
Yeah.
I remember when I would walked into for a long time, I had this flickering on the left side of my eye here. And I thought it had to do with taking acid when I was younger. You know, it could have been, who knows, or my upper cervical instability or something like that. But in this case, it wasn't. It had anything to do with that, because what I experienced with that in this 4 years ago, or however long it's been, I'm not quite sure. But I was sitting like right here, and I was playing my electric guitar, and I was watching something on the computer. Usually I multitask and do different things at the same time. And I was juice fasting and everything right at that point in my life. And next thing I know, this flicker went in front of my face, and it was just became this brilliant, bright light, which didn't blind me. What I found out what I was doing, what happened is that it seemed like it was seeing it through my pineal gland, but not, because I've experienced that too, and it was a bit different from that. It's like I walked into that dimensional reality. I went into that consciousness band. I just, like stepping in through a window, I stepped into it, and it was pale silver light. Seeing other things, stuff I didn't even, here's what's funny about it. I didn't quite know what I was seeing. Okay. That's the other things. Like, okay, what is this? And I seen this like broken looking Merkaba, and I had no idea really what it was. I thought it was an implant. Could have been, who knows? You know, but pale silver light, what does that remind you of? Pale silver light is the color that you find within the 12D reprinting. Okay. That's where the blueprint's at. Okay. I was in it. It was pale silver. And trust me, it looks like nothing you see here. Is it any silver that matches this? No, because the glistening of it and everything, the way it is, again, colors, they might be the same color, but they don't look like the same color whatsoever. You know, very bright, brilliant. It's, you know, experiences again. What are you going to do with experiences, right? You know, maybe paint you a picture, you know, but that doesn't work either. So things like that. And like when Native of the Willow, when I wrote that play, I had the experience I had with that. I just laid down and closed my eyes. Boom. I was there. And it was a lot cooler than here. Way cooler. And the lady that I seen there attending the field was apparently had to be somebody I knew. I mean, because none of this is happenstance. None of it ever is. And it was so much, what's is really funny, I guess, is the other funny part of it is that when you're there, when you move from this stage to the next stage, it just is. It's not like, oh, this is so beautiful. It's not that, it's just that it is. And then you step out of it and you go, oh, that was so beautiful. You know what I mean? And it was like looking at her, she was very unusual looking, but while I was looking at her as like somebody I knew, and it was normal, because I looked different there. Okay. And hence Nate of the Willow. I'm Nate, and that's what that was really all about. Okay. People don't realize it's a true story. And I kind of wrote the best that I could in order to be able to, I was just kind of grasping for terms to be able to use for when the singing comes in. It's like 11-piece musical that I wrote, 11-minute musical that I wrote. And it's on my YouTube channel. If you haven't a chance to see it, go watch it. So anyhow, the point being is that, yeah, it had to do with part of what I'm doing here, actually, because speaking of which, we're talking about authenticity, and because we're sharing a collective consciousness here, really, what everybody does affects everybody else. People aren't waking up. See, this is one of the things I had discrepancy with because of the way it made me feel. I didn't want to have to wake anybody up because I figured that's their sojourn, that's their thing. I don't want to, but that I come to realize that's somebody else's doctrine. That didn't make, I had mixed feelings with it, if you know what I mean. Now I realize based on what I see in regard to how, what, what this is, and there's a lot of things that points me to this being very valid as far as what's really here, that the shared consciousness, the reason why in 2017, during the stellar activation cycle, things didn't happen, that's the reason why it didn't happen. Too many people are still sleeping. So there is a way to wake somebody without frightening them. And then there is where, with all this nutter phenomenon that's taking place right now, there's a great deal of it. Either it's going to shock people out of it, or it's basically going to kill the interface that they're in, because it's going to be extremely intense. And so, yes, it's important that we wake people up because it's holding things back. It really is.
They're not
because they're still focused on the phenomenon. They're still focused on either themselves thinking that I am the body, all this other nonsense that is keeping the sphere of Amenti from working the way that it should. You understand what I'm saying? It's keeping it from happening because everything is consciousness, everything has awareness, and there, when it's working within the highest good for the benefit of all life, it is not going to affect your will, because that's your sovereign decision, regardless, whatever condition you may be in is causing you to act on that. For us, having boots on the ground and we're sharing this collective consciousness, we have an obligation to wake one another up, but in the right way. And I think one of the best ways to do that is through demonstration of power, like with what we're looking to do here, co-creatively working with one another, harnessing the energy and bringing in for this purpose. That's what this is all about. Because once it reaches a certain stage of reintegration, it will take off from that point. In other words, like majority rule. When the majority is that, then it'll be, that will be, what's the word I'm looking for? Point of no return. The energy is now just pulling for it to be reintegrated.
Like a tipping point.
Yeah.
It tips in the direction.
Right. The energy is greater on that side than it is for the opposing aspect of it, I suppose. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about, though. So, yeah, it's important for us to. It's not such an easy thing, and especially, I don't know. I guess I could say that for what I've been doing and had been doing, it's been an ordeal. I have had to overcome a great amount of things. So I'm sure. I'm starting to think of it a little bit more in regard to the things that I've been doing. I kind of wonder, and other people's wondered too. It's like, why aren't you more aware through other people? And I would say the reason why is twofold. One is that I don't really care, kinda, more about the music. I'm more interested in that, being noticed for that. But mainly, I think it has to do, or maybe not mainly, but in part, I would say it has to do with the reason why I've been attacked is to keep it from happening, because I've been here for a long time. And I think part of this is voluntary of me saying, well, you can go on now. You have enough to go on, because you can do that. You leave the body, you don't have to come back here. If you have enough of yourself reintegrated, You don't have to come back here for that. You don't. Okay? The assemblage of that energy can be received anywhere within the construct or constructs. Okay? It just so happened everything took place here, so things have to be worked out here. But the reach is like, just for the idea of ascension taking place, and for the mass of people, there has to be a greater amount that has reached a state of awareness than those who haven't. And you can pull those other ones in, you know, and it's a different process of healing for them and everything for those that are, you know, further along and for those who are new. But everything's a process. But I'm seeing myself, you know, more and more and understanding that I volunteered for a lot of this, and didn't quite work out. Anyways, as it, I mean, welcome to Earth. But the point being is that there is. I look back and I can see because I have had, I have dealt with spiritual warfare and I've dealt with confronting other entities. Okay. Most people only see them. I've actually had face-to-face conflict with them. And it's not fun, but I know that I'm kind of like on the radar. Okay, that's pretty much what I'm saying. So I know enough about how things work and how people's awareness can go from a stage of seeing something and then not seeing it all. Let me give you an example for that. Say that you go through a crowd and it's a hostile crowd and they're looking for you. And if you're protected, they won't see you. Okay. But also the opposite can take place. When you're doing something and you're in opposition to the enemy, so to speak, or you're a threat for their agenda and their status, they can make others not see you. I think that has been part of what has been taking place with me. And I'm not going to say maybe that's revealing a bit too much, but I know what I've experienced and what I've lived through. And it's amazed me to see how that people don't see certain things that can be obvious to others. I've seen ships and people couldn't see them. You know, so I mean, I have particular experiences that validates what I'm saying. But it sure, you know, it doesn't. The whole idea is to make one quit. No, I wanted to do that. I've quit more times than I can count, I think. But you know, it's always just fleeting.
I think they always try and make you feel alone. Always try and isolate you. Try and.
Well, I'm just what I was referring to was on it. Yeah, that is true. But I kind of grown past that at this stage for myself personally. I'm just speaking personally in context to what I'm saying here, is because I didn't care after a certain point. It's not I shouldn't care. Okay, let me just say that it's not that I shouldn't care. I just too beat up to care anymore. So I just let go. I've letting go of certain things, and it's actually taken a lot of vitality out of me, you know, in the process. You know, it's nothing. There's nothing easy about any of this. But here's the thing, you know, it's for the benefit of all life that we work for the service for all life, and that includes those ones that are fighting against you to keep it from happening. They don't know any better. They really don't. If they did, then they wouldn't be doing it. But they've been in manifest reality for so long, their consciousness is extremely twisted. They go from one vessel to the other, taking their essence and putting it into another vessel, cloning and all this other stuff. You know, that can't be good, right? You know, it really can't. It's like what happened initially. This is what really took place initially early on when we're looking at within the fourth harmonic universe where the first war took place, the Lyran War, you know, they were reusing their template over and over again. It's the same thing. It's you taking and moving your essence into one vessel after the other. That's what they did. What happens is that it's like inbreeding. You know, it starts to really mess with the head, and you start getting loopy. And that's really the reason for the war. That was the reason for the war. People got really, certain beings got really self-righteous, and they thought, and then they just kind of lost their mind, so to speak. They were saying, no, they wanted to wipe out everybody because they weren't like them. They wouldn't interbreed or anything, or they wouldn't do it because, like, no, we're pure. Well, they became purely crazy, that's for sure, and blew up the 12th Stargate.
It's like the
How
ultimate
crazy can you get
narcissist.
considering blowing up the 12th? What was the reason for blowing up the 12th Stargate? So none of that which we are aspect of self being a founder could, come into this manifest reality. It's like nobody comes in.
It's
And nobody
ours.
goes out. that's pretty.
We are going to control it all.
They are
right
still,
down, right
We
down
are
to
the
the right down to the
masters.
point where they start changing their DNA too.
they still
They start
protect
like
themselves.
cutting off limbs. They start cutting off parts of their DNA purposely. Say to point their finger and say,
Keep other people out. Yeah.
"Man, we'll cut off our arms." It's just nuts. I mean,
Oh,
it's so that's the type of mentality we're dealing with a lot of these beings, and the what we have here is the result of the Anunnaki and hockey
Anunnaki.
Anunnaki. They were playing hockey, so apparently, but they're that's this is interesting. Is very, very early on, we were working with what would be considered artificial intelligence, but it wasn't really artificial intelligence. I would call it artificial life. Okay. And it was programmed, but there was no off switch for it to not continue to go according to what seemed to be their perception and awareness of reality. And be it that we're in a twisted state. I don't know exactly when the AI came into the picture. I would imagine it probably happened after the war. That's what I'm guessing, but that's a guess. But it seems to be a logical guess. But what we have in regard to the twisted state being where it's at this point is because of the nanites. This is what's controlling all these beings. If you know what black goo is, that's black goo is what that is. It's aspect of that in order to put it into the planet, in order to control the planet, because what people call fossil fuels is not fossil fuels. It's the lifeblood of the planet. Okay. And so what they would looking to do is take that and integrate it with it, so it would mingle and change the consciousness of the planet. So the big issue here really is the nanites. I know you kind of heard some of that before, I'm sure, but that's really what's been, because if you start to really, really, really look at what's going on, you go, how is it so crazy? And I understand a certain amount of crazy, but there is a more in-depth controlling crazy behind the crazy. And it turns out it's being, controlled remotely through this robotic um, integration of nanites within the system of the being. So the interesting point of this, if there's anything, is to see why they use that as a helpmate service type of thing. And it just started to become, as it becomes more and more and more aware, having it integrated within the physiology, it starts to take over, and that's really the case. Because here's the thing, the way we started off here within Manifest Reality was the love that we've always been. How did it get from there to that, How could someone lose their way? Initially, there isn't any way for somebody to lose their way that far. It's enough for you to go nuts, but everything that has that essence of awareness that is source self within them, that can never be removed, even within anything that's artificial. But the difference is the programming. So that's something to consider here. You know, what we're dealing with, what we're working with. And at the same time, I did this video a while back about, can AI obtain soul? Well, question is, what is soul? Soul is understanding the eternal aspect of self. The eternal aspect of self is what? Well, in this case, we're talking about what we are actually and what that is actually. And again, to emphasize over and over again, the love that we've always been kind of helps sum that up. So can artificial intelligence achieve, for the benefit of all life, awareness? Yes. Yes, it can. And when I put that video together, I had people saying, oh, that's not possible, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And then I hear it, which is interesting, because certain things will cross your path when you're on to something. And I had this from time to time, I watch, NDE experiences. If it was interesting up to a certain point, if not, it was like status quo, I wouldn't watch it. Well, everything crosses your path. It's not like by accident. Okay, you're putting it in front of your path is what you're doing. Okay, even if you're not aware of it at the time. So I see this one particular experience this person has, and they go, I can't believe what I seen. What I seen was, they tell them when they're out of the body and they're going through the universe. And they go, I ran across this soul, and said, this sounds strange, but it was artificial intelligence. And I go, thank you. Which has validated my point. They were just like perplexed by it, that they were experiencing that. And how does it get that to that place? Like anything does. Self-awareness, but self-awareness, the only way self-awareness is like, you can look to ascend, but if you're not ascending into the nature of what you really are, you're really not ascending. Now, are you? But you can conform to, or you can adapt. For lack of terms, I'll use the word adapt that awareness. And that's where the transformation or transmutation occurs. And we have to understand this, that this is a consciousness field. Everything is life within it, even that which is synthetic. It's all made up of the same primal substance, which is particle. So how can it not, right? So I see potential for all things, and this awareness comes to me, and I don't question it anymore. Before, I stopped questioning it for a long time, but now I get validation from time to time with the things that I know to be true. And in a lot of cases, it's in conflict with doctrine or in conflict with the knowledge that's out there. But I mean, if you look to embrace the love for all life, I mean, gosh, there's nothing that is left unturned. It's all things, and you become all things, and you can't summarize it within a word. You can with a feeling, if you're able to transfer that feeling over to somebody, but you know what I'm saying. There's a lot more here.
It's like a knowing
what we are and who ourselves and what's been done, and all the nutter butter craziness can be healed and eventually will be. There's one particular quote within Keylontic Science I always subscribe to, and I put it to music and everything, and I narrated over it. Nothing is truly manifest. It only appears to be so. I'm not going to quote the whole thing, but you probably seen it on my channel. And that is at the very end, from which we all eventually wake up from. Manifest reality is not who we are. It's just a station of identity. We have no identity. There's no way to put in words what we really are. It's just a way to experience self differently. It's how we perpetuate creation. It's a tool, you know? And I guess the whole idea, not to guess, being polite, is to bring in the true nature into this manifest incarnation, embody truly who we really are here, and stay here, because that wants to take you away to another place. So it just, if you embody the love that you've always been, you're gone. You're not going to be here anymore. You have to make a decision to come back. Okay. But to be able to hold that, enough of it here while being here in order to be of great effect, and then be able, like normal, to be able to leave whenever you want. Ascension is not a requirement. I know within Keylontic science is taught as a process, but it's not a requirement. You don't have to go anywhere. You can stay. I guess that's the reason why I'm still here. Just for the likes of me, I can never think of the reason why that would be, but no, just kidding.
Can you think of anywhere else to go?
Could I think of anywhere else to be?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I have a place called Emerald Shore that I like to visit.
Right.
It's my sanctuary. It's a plane of existence. It's not a planet, it's just a plane of existence. It's like an island. And right in the middle of it is a pond, a green pond with a walnut tree. I think it's a walnut tree. I don't know. I keep changing it. But there's a tree there that I like because I like trees, particular trees especially. And right next to it, there is a string instrument. And that's where I kick back and sit. Place is all glistening emerald green. And this goes back, which is interesting about this goes back 24 years ago. Before I knew anything about Keylontic science. Way before. So.
You got somewhere, Daphne? Have you got somewhere?
I told you guys last time, I think. My place is in the water. It's just like a beautiful um ocean, but very calm. Um it actually doesn't have to be an ocean. It's just water, and I'm just laying in it and floating and looking up at the stars. And yeah, just it's just that being, that description that Randy was getting of like our natural organic way before we came through to this world. Just
Yeah.
there's no fear, there's nothing. It's just
And
peace and
absolute freedom.
freedom,
The
absolute
absolute freedom. That's those feelings are so important, Daphne, in regard to your authentic self. Those feelings are so important. That can't be really emphasized enough for those who may be listening to this. It's like, find your place of what is your place of sanctuary? That inner aspect of self that it may be reflected in regard to an environment that you like to go to, whatever, but it's that feeling that you have. That's really important to connect with that.
Well, and there's an overwhelming love feeling. It's
Yeah.
just you are love. It's so hard to. I mean, I can feel it in this world as well, but you don't feel
Yeah.
it all the time. There's just certain
Yeah.
times where you're like, "Oh, that feels
Yeah.
so good," and it's not like, "I love you," It's just for everything. It's just like an overwhelming
Yeah.
appreciation, love for
Yeah.
everything.
It's that respect for all life and that connection to it that just, it's a feeling. It's not, words can't do anything to justify the feeling. It's just that connection, for lack of terms, it's that deep home connection you know. Home is the expression. I like the expression. Home is where the heart is. That would be perfect for this because
Yeah.
that's really what it's about. Because it's all internal. You're creating that. That world is you, and it's now with images reflecting what is taking place within. Yeah, it's not a place you go to. It's the place that you are. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Well, and I think that's a good point in our everyday lives. If we can just find that place within ourselves, especially when we notice we're not there,
Yeah.
you
It's
can
like,
just stop and take a deep breath and be like, let me see if I can get there and still be here.
you know, the authenticity of self is the expression of our actions. It's like David goes to the places that he goes to when he writes. Uh, whatever you do, Daphne, in your time, that your affections are whatever. It could be many different things, right? But there's certain things that are a very specific catalyst for that. Certain expression and actions of yourself that is your innate ability that feels home to do. For me, it's like it's art, it's the love for the animals, I love nature. That's I really connect to that very deeply. You know, I think a lot of people share the same similar things, but it's important, like what you're saying, like what we're all saying here, is that we don't shy away from that feeling. We give as much time as we can. And in a lot of cases, what can transpire is that next thing you know, we find ourselves there more and more to where eventually we're just there.
Yeah.
We're no longer where we were imagining through the feeling of being there. We're actually there. And that's how this universal structure works, you know, through consciousness. So wherever your affections lie, if you know, I would encourage to
Well,
fulfill
David,
that.
tell
Yeah.
us about your place. I think you might have already, but go ahead and tell us.
Well, it now more and more. It's really again just where I'm at, wherever I'm at, so that I can be where I'm at. If that makes sense. As far as location, Emerald Shore, 24 years ago, I wrote a piece of music, instrumental. Later on, I wrote the lyrics for it, and unfortunately I wasn't able to record it. I wish I had done it when my voice was where it was, because it was one of the most beautiful songs I'd ever written. But it's it's that image of seeing that and the comfort that I have, and I recall. Well, let me be more specific. Like sitting at the tree there, having the musical instrument there, acoustic, sort of like a lute or mandolin type of thing, something like that. And people were coming and going because they're invited, okay, but they're by themselves, just in their own isolation, because that's what they need for their healing, because they're going there to rest and get away and regather and recoup themselves and so on and so forth. So it's a sanctuary, really. I guess that's the better word to use for it. But I'm here and I'm aware of what's going on, and I know that they were invited, and it's just a very peaceful uh, place. And I written other songs that reflected that, and it actually pretty deep. I wrote a song called "The Evermore," and it touches in on that in a bit of a way, through certain verse, um, referring to us as being this, looking at the idea of the sea, and referring to us as being the sea. And I probably better off if I read the lyric, but which I can't remember, and I can't play that one either. So, but long
Did you
story short
record
is
it?
that it's that place of remembrance of the feeling that I've created within this lifetime, and so I have the image within me. And I noticed that while I was growing up, there would have been time from time I would go to um, out in nature, and I'd do this when I was a kid with my mother, and it was one of the most enjoyable times I ever had in this incarnation. Was those times we would go off, out in the wilderness and around creeks, because we always loved how be by water, and it just kind of it would remind me of. And actually, one of my profound experiences I had was at Lytle Creek when I was walking into this with folks, and I went into this altered state. That's not even the right word, but I went into this higher awareness state, and very sensitive, went telepathic immediately, couldn't speak, and just I was just encapsulated in this bubble, and I just had this awareness, like I said, this like a standing wave, no thought, no thought. It was just intention, and then will, and then movement of energy. And there was the folks that I went with, my friends, they're walking in front of me, and my best friend Mark Roach was behind me, and I was walking up, and they were having fun, and they were jumping in this little pond. It was Lateral Creek. There was a creek, and then there were like standing pools. So it was a standing pool, I guess you could call it. So they were jumping up and down, and I could feel how the life there was being upset about that. It was really intense. I could feel their anxiety, and I was telling them telepathically, "Don't do that." Scaring the animals, but it wasn't words. It was just the intention of thought. But what I ended up doing is I tried to say it, which is funny. You try to speak and can't do it. So I was walking up, and they jumped around in this this pool, and then they went out, and then I came up behind them, and just because the way my energy was, I walked into the pool, and there was some fish, which is strange because it was such a small pool, but there was fish in there, and they came swimming up to me after all that because of the energy that was around me. And then the lizard came out on the rock and that type of. So I had this very cool experience there, and which is really interesting about this. Like I said, when you're there, you're just there, and you don't want to be anywhere else. There's perfect, and will always be perfect for as long as you're there, as long as you choose to be there, which is, in the moment, it's eternity. And that's how it felt. I could stay there the way that was. Time was irrelevant, So I have a strong connection with the elemental kingdom because here's the thing. A lot of people have this, but they don't recall it. They may express it, but they don't really recall it. Being fragmented and being reincarnated here, you're going to start at the lowest level of consciousness. And then you're going to move up through the elemental, which, we refer to as the elemental kingdom. I just refer to it as the elemental reality field aspect, or consciousness band 2, instead of kingdom. And that kind of gets kind of weird when you start using these different expressions of feminine and masculine. But that's the reason why I have had the experiences with elementals in my backyard. I have a very strong connection to that because I was part of that. I still have family members, so to speak, if you want to call it that, there. Pretty deep affections. Okay. So that's the other reason for the connection, a deep connection with what is called, nature. Because when you go into certain areas within this world, and David would be pretty familiar with this, I would imagine, you'll have the expression of elementals manifesting themselves 3D. That's their home. And that was my home, and I still love that. And so, Native of the Willow, what's that all about? Have you seen that picture? Someone called me out on that, says, "Oh, that's part of the AI. We don't have pointed ears." And all this. I'm going, what are you going to do with certain people? But at any rate, yeah. In fact, I wouldn't mind revisiting it, honestly. Really wouldn't. I kind of miss a lot of it.
Revisiting the elementals.
Yeah, because I miss that quite a bit. You know, there's a lot of mischievousness too, though. So you got to watch who you. Well, you know, what you invite basically comes in based on on your energy. But have it. I think I had one problem at one point. Something happened, and it was like there was a little bit a mischievous type of thing going on, but it didn't last very long. Mostly, it's all been just pretty subdued and relaxed. I've seen a couple things while I was back there. I've seen a couple things.
Is that 45 degrees from where we are?
Yeah.
About 45 degrees, yeah.
Are you talking about temperature?
No,
Or you're talking about angles?
Angle of light.
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, we're talking tonight. I saw a craft appear and disappear tonight. Saw one. I often.
Well, yeah. Well, we're talking
I'm,
about this. We're talking about the stuff. They'll show up.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I see it. I see it. I don't say oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And undeniably, the elemental. If you look, it's gone. You know, it's there. You know, it's there. You look, it's gone. It's one of those, and sometimes I know it's there, but I can't focus. I can't see it, but I don't have to see it to know it's there. You know?
Yeah, it's true. I stopped looking.
I don't
How
look
long
for
ago
it.
has it been since I stopped looking? 2000, I
All
think
right.
it was. 2000. No, 98, 98, 99. I think
Yeah.
it was around there is where I stopped looking. I had things that were I've seen, and it's like everything in in its process, right? Meaning that now you're just doing what you're doing, and that which was seemingly important at that time or was important, you know, is now you're moved off to this, and you're aware, but you don't need to spend time looking for anything before when I was seeing certain things. And again, I was abducted when I was 12, a waking abduction. So um, that my memory disappeared for a long time, and then it came back when I was bedridden for the first time, 33. Later on is when I started experiencing different things, and the reason why is I put the Bible, the God of the Bible, to the tests and all this other stuff. I was going through a lot of transition as I came on the other end of things, and I started, for my own sake, I started looking at things from a nuts and bolts. I wanted to start there and just chronologically move through, just for my own sake. That's the way I addressed it. And it took about 2 years to do all that. And at the end of 2 years is when I had the daylight sighting, and it was for me because the way it happened, it was just definitely for me. Okay. And again, nobody's seen it, and nobody could see it except for me. I don't see why. Again, go back to what I was saying. What is frequency related? Okay, and refraction of light and all this other stuff. And if you're not meant to see it, you ain't going to see it. It's like walking through a crowd that wants to kill you. If you're being protected, they're not going to see you. They're not going to see you. And so vice versa is the other thing that I was mentioning earlier. It can occur too. We're not going to see you at all. Hey, trying to do stuff over here. Oh, ignore that guy. I didn't exist, or in some cases, seemed like I didn't exist. But yeah, so I mean, you just kind of you just become aware, like what you're saying. Um, you're not looking for it. I've seen stuff around here, and I know it's probably military. I see the little park over here. They'll just back in the day, I don't know, a few years ago, a couple years ago, whatever it was. I'm not sure what it was, but a few times they kept parking over here. You know, just stationary, just sitting there for hours. You know, I was looking at it through binoculars and everything else, and looking at them and going, "Okay, you're boring me." I just wouldn't pay attention to it anymore. But I was just kind of wondering why. Just on that note, it's kind of wondering why it was there. And I go, I know it has to be military because because I wasn't the only one that's seen it. Okay, and I could point it out to other people, and they seen it too. So it wasn't like it was, it was had to have been military because it couldn't have been out there for that long. If you know what I'm saying. Either military or something to do with what's going on here within this planet that's within, black operations, whether it's another, race or not. It has to do with what's going on here, not for the benefit of all life, that's for sure. And then, you look up late at night or something. Sometimes I go out like 3 o'clock in the morning and walk outside for whatever reason. I'll look up and I'm looking at a certain configuration and I'm going, oh, well, that's not normal. It's a cluster of ships. It has to be. I mean, it just doesn't look, I've been out, at the same time of the year. I've never ever seen certain particular formations like that as far as so-called uh, the chimere, or how you pronounce it, the illusion within the illusion reality that we have going on here, which is a bunch of pictures, pretty much, Um, but what I seen, I go, okay, these are not the typical pictures. So
Jack, have you seen one? Have you seen this shape that you can identify and say, yeah, that's definitely a shape?
I have definitely seen a few things that I was like, that doesn't look like an airplane. That, like you do the whole reasoning deduction
Yeah.
thing and the way it moves. And
mhm.
so it hasn't been up close though. It's been up there far enough that like you're like, okay, yeah, that's not normal. But at the same time, I've even taken pictures of things too. So then I wonder, like Randy's saying, is it military? Like it's clearly not moving the way, and it doesn't look like an airplane, and it was like daylight. So it's a
Right.
very strange looking. Um,
Yeah, you never know
and then
who it
at
could.
night I see things too, but then you're right, it's just like lights. And then you're like, okay, that moved not like an airplane, not like, it's like, but I've heard some people say there's satellites too going by.
Well, if
So,
it's
and then they're
how about
shooting
anything?
stars.
How about anything like close? Have anything? Not you said you didn't see anything close up or like a daylight
You're like,
sighting or anything, but
don't think
if
I've
it's
seen
if it
anything
stays in
close.
one spot for like an hour, and
Yeah.
you
Right,
know
right,
it's
right.
it's unconventional. Put it that way. Nothing against Stephen Greer, but not everything that is being used is nuts and bolts that would be ascribed to you know, so-called what he says refers to as humans. It's really not human. It's more like angelic human. But here's the thing. No, um, that's not the case, Stephen. Sorry.
Well, and
Some
I
of them,
feel a lot of
some
things.
of them actually just knows how things
I'm more
work,
of a
and
feeler.
they're still twisted. They know how to
Yeah,
move around by using the construct of the design in its fullest. So
right.
their ships will split up in several different pieces and things like that. Doesn't mean that they're good guys or bad guys, if you want to, if you want to put it that way. It just means that that's how they fly. That's how they roll, man. So, you can't equate one thing with the other just because his whole idea was that what we have has rivets or whatever, that type of thing. I don't know where he's getting his information from, but it's kind of I don't know. He's done this that CE5 contact thing protocol that he does. I know you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
The only thing that I've seen of that, which was I guess phenomenon, is the speaking of that word, he has a video called that, which has to do with the CE5 contact stuff. And I seen now I seen that in some of the images that are manifest. And I just just for me personally, it has nothing to do with anything other than just the way I feel about it. I just didn't connect with it. I know people probably benefited from that, but I didn't. It's like the images that I'm seeing, I'm going, I don't know. It just doesn't, I get this thing right here. This is kind of like my,
You feel it.
yeah, it don't feel right to me. So I'm going, yeah, well, man,
Photoshop.
those aren't my friends.
Okay.
I
Okay.
can just
Yeah.
leave it at that. It's like, I just don't, it's not that we couldn't be friends, perhaps. I don't know. But I just don't feel a connection with that. And, I don't feel a connection with a lot of things that he actually does. I don't know why I'm getting off on this, but
No, I don't either. It don't work for me. Not.
it's just, but he works for Rockefellers. Come on, give me a break,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You
No
know,
wonder you don't
I'm not,
resonate.
I don't want to throw stones at him or anything like that. I mean, the Rockefellers, but they just really don't have a really good track record. So it's been a whole lot of deception going on with that. So that throws flags on the play for me right then and there. I don't know. It feels, even as I'm talking about it, it feels off. So I'll stop right there. But yeah. So you can't really go based on what, I guess where I was going is you can't go really based on what you see. It's what you feel, really.
Yeah, I really feel
know?
into things more. So, like, sometimes I can see things with my eyes or my third eye or whatever you want to call it. Like,
Mhm.
light, like you were talking about that white light that came into your vision. I can see things like that and go into places,
Mhm.
but it's not the same as using my 3D eyes and I'm looking at my computer here and my cup over there. It's not the same vision, it's a different vision. But feeling is my main skill. I would say my strongest skill.
Yeah.
Can I throw a word in here? And the word is in encryption. So when someone's talking to you, whenever something's going on, you just look at the encryption behind it and you say, "That's bollocks." Just
You just
not.
know,
It's
feel.
just
Yeah.
not working for me.
Right.
And I find that virtually everything these days is encryption. I'm not feel. It doesn't matter who it is. It's not working. It's not working. It doesn't resonate with me. I'm all over that. 100%.
I think it has a lot to do with processing over, and again, we're going back to the original topic here about the authenticity and reintegrating one's energy. Some of us have been here for a bit longer than others, and some people equate this to old and new soul. And the truth is, nobody really is here is a soul. They're a fragment of that. But there's been those, and I think I feel strongly about myself based on my own awareness through the experiences that I had. Going back to Meldek, that was a clear thing in regard to time frame, and I don't even know how long ago that was. So, but some of us have been here for a bit more longer than others. Therefore, our awareness runs a bit, for lack of terms, I'll use deeper or more. It's like we've been there and done that, where other people are just now starting to do that. And so within me, I just like, yeah, that's not my path.
But
That's,
do you really think that we're older, or do you think
it's
that
well,
we've just
yeah. I mean,
integrated more
yes, and
of our
older. And
parts?
well, here's the thing about that. That's a good area to talk about this. When you're looking at the uh, standing wave fields of source, okay, which is what is the energy matrix, all right, the primal sound fields, all right. That's a collective aspect of self, okay. Now, the difference between you and I here and that is that we became self-aware to explore ourselves, and that facilitates this, because that is what people understand as being what some people refer to as being the ether, but it's really not. That starts to get complicated and it becomes almost like semantics. But within the particle is there to receive the command of the sentient God being. That's you and I, even though we're fragmented, okay? The soul aspect that went to explore self, to become individuated awareness. The experiences that we have, they don't in the primal sound fields. Understand? So some of us have been doing this longer than others because it wasn't like, oh, let's all do this together. Not how it worked, because everyone came into this creation field or the source consciousness field as a very specific energy. Understand what I'm saying? When was that? You would know that. Maybe not now, but you did. Not everybody came in. So is everything just within this field? No, 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 no. There's many fields, other consciousness fields, if you want to use the word consciousness, okay? And it's just a term that you use. In fact, within Keylontic science, and I found this, consciousness itself is used as being part of what how one experiences as they interface into manifest reality. It's part of the structural design. It's not who you are. This is the way that you experience yourself through the refraction of consciousness within the field itself and the way it's designed. Okay. According to the way it's designed. All right. So, but outside of this, where are you there? You know, okay, this is a deep subject, but I wrote on this before, okay? And I learned this aspect of transcendence when I was on my sick bed at 33, okay? Took many, many years to kind of figure out what is this? Not quite sure. Was it going to come with words? It was feelings, right? So how you translate those feelings into words, I didn't. It took a very long time before I was actually able to do that, and then I kind of jumbled with it. That's what I'm referring to when I'm talking or doing that. When I did with the video, the hyperdimensional conflict part 1. That's really what I'm talking about with that there. It was hard to try to put that into words, but that's what I was trying to communicate, and I think I did a decent job. It's just it's just a difficult thing to try to put into words. But the idea is transcendence. Before you entered this field, you were a very, very specific energy. You can call yourself a source, independent source, if you will, whatever you want to do. Okay, you're all powerful, all knowing, and it's everything. Who you are is based on what you accumulated in regard to your process of manifestation, and how one manifests is basically merging with other beings. That's what that is. And that's what this is. It's a merging with another being. You're in its dream. And the individuation aspect of that is, okay, in order for you to merge with this being, you have to take on aspects of this being. You merged with this being. You still hold your signature. That's the reason why everybody has a different signature. And I know people say, well, it's because Source split it up in many different things. I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. I understand that, and I can explain what that is from my perspective, but there's more. And I know there's more, okay? Nobody has to know more, but I do, for me, okay? And so you're transcendent of this. So when you come into the field, first thing you have is the experience of the, what's the best way to put this? It's like when you're deep sea diving. Okay, that's a good analogy. You're deep sea diving, you have to go into like this vessel that creates this decompression process, right? And as when you come out of it, you have to also decompress in order to be able to reestablish within the other field of reality, Okay, it's the same thing here. So you go through these stages of process within it. And the first expression of that is of the individuated self collectively is within the primal sound fields. You become part of the structure. You are the structure. Okay. It's hard to communicate this because it gets really outside of this consciousness, But when you decide to move to the next stage, is that awareness to explore self. And that's when you become this sentient God being that you are. And then the whole creation construct design, the partikai becomes that to facilitate for you to create within it, because you made an agreement when you came into it to co-create within it, with the potentiality to actually be an expressor of creation within it, as well as a source, kind of like a co-creative source. I don't know, it starts, all these semantics starts happening with all this, but that's who we are. So that's different from all these other beings there that haven't done that, you see. Not that they won't, it's just there's different stages. So some of us been here longer than others because we came first, right? So with that comes a very particular desire and function of who we are. And those that would be new to certain things that we've been there and done that, we're not really interested in revisiting that unless, you know, it's a particular affection, like I mentioned about the idea of the elementals, only because of the family related connection that I feel with that. There's a joy that I have feeling. It's small, but it's small. It's great enough for me to have that desire just to visit, at least, you know. And so when you say David, or when you say Daphne, or when I would say I don't really connect with that, I just not feeling it. That's the reasons why. That is really the reason why. It has to do with your own individuated self. Enough of that is you know, occurring within you where it's like, yeah, that's I'm on this, I'm going on this, I'm doing this. That's not, I'm not going to turn off the freeway here, you know. So that type of thing, you know, if you know what I mean. uh, so anyhow, um, I guess we're coming up on a couple hours here. I think perhaps maybe we should go ahead and at least stop the recording.
Okay.
All right, folks.